We should be live. Just getting things set up on YouTube. It's been a while, but here we are, frankly. But we should be good to go.
Frankly.
We might take questions? Yeah, I will be. Just give me a sec. How's my audio sound? Is it a little bit, it's a little bit peaking, getting things set up on YouTube? What's the deal? Do we like it? It's been a while, but here we are, frankly. Welcome, welcome. But we should be digital cameras work. So digital cameras work by using semiconductors. So we might take questions? Yeah, I will be. Just give me a sec. Really interesting. So you know how how's my audio sound? Is it a little bit? It's a little bit peaking, getting things set up with my connection. What's the deal? So you know how like been a while. You know how? But here we are, frankly. One second, let me put this down here. You know how you can put electricity into a semiconductor and get light out? Welcome, welcome. LED is? Well, you can do the same thing kind of in reverse. So you can take cameras work by using semiconductors, and you'll get electricity. Yeah, I will be. Just really interesting. So you know how? How's my audio sound? Is it a little bit? It's a little bit peaking, getting things set up with my connection. So you know how? There we go. Okay. Hopefully the audio is fixed. I hope. But I think that my YouTube connection is really not good. This is the first time I'm streaming from this new computer with this new internet connection, so is everything okay, or is the audio okay? Is the video okay? It says that I'm dropping a lot of frames. Massive echo. Okay, let me try something else. Let me try something. That I don't understand. There shouldn't. So. Oh. I know what the problem was. I'm stupid. Hopefully it's fixed now. Yeah, the connection seems really, really bad though. Is the connection okay? YouTube stream is fine. Lots of freezing and audio delay. Okay. Okay, I mean, let me check on, sorry, we're just getting this all sorted. Let me make sure that what my network's doing. My network should be able to handle this. Yeah, so the network shouldn't be too intense. No, it's definitely my connection. I'll have to work on that. But anyway, I can answer questions. Which one do you prefer, pure maths or applied maths? Well, it depends, right? So applied math as in to solve like real world problems, meh. But I like mathematics as it's used to solve physics problems, like problems in theoretical physics. That I really, really appreciate. Grimlock with the $5, thank you so much. You brought the rain with you, now it's humid. Yeah, I know it poured when I got in. I'm so aware. How big a deal is the SETI stuff? If you're talking about recent SETI stuff, I don't know. I haven't seen any recent SETI stuff. So I can't comment on that. How do I tolerate Q-Top? Oh, he's a character. What? It says live is not eligible? What are you talking about? It's very eligible. God, the connection is so bad. How to solve F equals ma? Well, you either know the force or you know the acceleration and you solve accordingly. Yeah, no, I know I'm lagging hard. I need to, and I don't think, is this a ping issue? I don't think it's a, it might be a ping issue. I think it's on my end. Y'all, I'm not going to, yeah, it's definitely a ping issue. It doesn't help that I'm on Wi-Fi right now. So, if science, why lag? Because I'm on Wi-Fi. I assumed that that I would have an Ethernet cable, but I don't have an Ethernet cable, so I'm on Wi-Fi. I'm on a proper desktop, but I'm on Wi-Fi. So the question is why am I? And the router's right next door, so. I mean, I'll do my best to answer questions for at least for a bit, but if it gets unbearable, then we'll restart. Then it's so unbearable. Couldn't connect, trying to reconnect. What was your dissertation on? My dissertation was on conformal hypersurface geometry. What's the difference between the E, D, B, and H field? Honestly, so the D and H fields are just the E and B fields in stuff. That's it. Like, it was an old distinction that doesn't seem super relevant. Like, it's not... Fancy Zling with the $10. Oh, is my YouTube thing working? It should pick up the super chat. Did it trigger? It should trigger. Oh no. Wait, it didn't trigger. I'm so confused. Okay, well, oh well. Thank you for the $10 though. I appreciate you, Fancy Sling. I keep seeing videos on my feed talking about the universe being in a black hole. What do you think of the theory? I'm not so convinced. If only because, like, look, the actual, like, description of a black hole that we typically use is just not really compatible with, like, a whole universe. Now, it could be that outside of the observable universe it's empty, in which case then it would be compatible, but that seems very, very far-fetched. How come I was in the Czech Republic? For work. What's the hot field in physics right now? Condensed matter is always a hot field because it always has a lot of practical applications. So if the universe is expanding from a point, we know the rate of expansion as well as the approximate age of the universe would be possible to approximate the location of the origin point. The universe isn't expanding from a place. That's a mistake. The universe is expanding. The universe used to be much smaller, but that was the entirety of space was smaller, not that like all of the stuff in space was in a smaller place. Tell the TikTok viewers to come to YouTube. That is a possibility. You guys could go to YouTube, and it looks like the connection's probably better there. When you answer your talk really, really fast, I have no idea what you said your dissertation was on. It was on conformal hypersurface geometry. And I know I answer fast. Sorry, I have to answer fast because there's a lot of questions. Can you explain what a particle is? A particle is an excitation of a quantum field. That's the simplest answer. What is beyond the expansion of empty space? What is space expanding into? So there is no beyond the expansion of empty space. As far as we can tell, there's just more universe in all directions forever. Space isn't expanding into something. Space is just getting, there's just more space being generated, if that makes sense. What used to be, say, 1 meter is now 2 meters, for example. Comprehension is a better measure of intelligence than reciting information. Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely. The hot field would be studying stars. Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. The universe never expands its infinity. Well, that's not quite true, right? Not at all. New setup for the stream is looking crisp. Well, it does, except I have an internet problem right now. How would you defend nominalism? I wouldn't try to defend it. It's just the view that I hold. It seems consistent with the way that I think about the world. How does quantum entanglement violate locality, and can this give us a solution to the mind-body problem? Not really. It can't, as far as I'm aware, it can't give us a solution to the mind-body problem. But it violates, so quantum entanglement might violate locality, depending on what you mean by locality, and depending on all these sorts of lovely things. But under the standard Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, the quantum entanglement violates locality because something happening here affects something happening elsewhere instantaneously. Now, you can't transmit information that way, but there's still something happening instantaneously. Am I back in the US now? I am. Can you explain Faraday's law? Yeah, Faraday's law tells you that the rate at which a magnetic field, the rate at which magnetic flux is changing is proportional to an induced, well, it is proportional to an induced current. I know my live is lagging, but more specifically, it's proportional to the induced EMF, the induced electric or induced potential, or electromotive force, if you will. So this means that if you change the magnetic field in a region very, very quickly, you will produce electric currents as a result of if you change the magnetic field very, very quickly, you will produce electric currents circulating, usually. It doesn't always have to circulate, but you will produce an electric field. I know the live is lagging. If time is relative, what does that really mean for how we experience the universe? It doesn't really mean much for how we experience it, but it does mean something for how we think about what we're actually experiencing. Is the 13-sign astronomical zodiac observable in the northern hemisphere different in the southern hemisphere? No, they are the same because they're on the ecliptic. They're viewable from both hemispheres. It's probably the Wi-Fi. Currently although my upload speed, it's probably just the Wi-Fi because I'm not eating into the upload speed very much. I'm a physics and math double major, getting my degree from a good university and a good CV. I'm interested in doing theoretical foundational physics for my PhD. Any tips? Try to get into research if you can. As an undergrad, that's the best thing that you can do. If time is relative, is lag even real? Good point. Do you think after talking to QTOP we are de-evolving? Yeah, probably. Destroyed by QTOP. Well, my recent videos begs to differ. Run an Ethernet? Yeah, I'm going to probably grab an Ethernet cable today. Did I mute myself? Yeah, while I was drinking, yeah. How close do you think we are to be able to create gravity? Well, we can. We just move stuff around and you're changing the gravitational field. The question is like producing gravity from nothing. That's, as far as I'm aware, that's not possible. Are there any studies into a true void lacking all fields? So fields by definition are everywhere. So there are no such things as a true void in that sense. No video from browser, just audio. Yeah, who knows, man? I don't know what's going on. In what domain of physics do you think a breakthrough in anti-gravity will occur? I don't think that there will be one. Maybe restart your live. I don't think that this is a TikTok issue. This is a me issue, almost certainly. I can try reducing the resolution though. Let me try that. I can't change that now. I would have to stop the live stream. Can I ask a physicist to move back to the Czech Republic where the internet is much more reliable? Yeah, if only, right? But no, you cannot. What are your thoughts on simulation theory? I think that it's closer to religion than science. Can a human be able to calculate an object moving in real time? Yeah, sure. Do quantum fields extend outside the universe? By definition, the universe is everything, so there isn't really an outside the universe. Hey man, are you gay? I'm not. Does a state of nothingness even exist? It depends on what you mean by nothingness, but in the traditional sense, no. Why does the stronger weak force seem to be short range compared to gravity or EM? So the weak force is short range because the force carrying particles have mass. So the way that forces behave when their force carriers have mass is that they fall off exponentially rather than going as a 1 over r squared or an inverse square law. The strong nuclear force, on the other hand, is weak because it's so strong. So really what's happening is that the strong nuclear force, the genuine strong nuclear force, quantum chromodynamics, is so strong that it actually always neutralizes itself to the point where all that we see that holds nuclei together is a residual strong force. And the residual strong force can be modeled as something that has a force-carrying particle that has mass. It's the pion. Necked with the $5. Did you see Sean Carroll versus Eric Weinstein and Piers Morgan? Sean said the paper contains no math. Eric Weinstein said Carroll was wrong and paper has math. I did see it. I thought it was very, very funny. You sick or something? No. I am on a new computer, and I'm just not shouting into a void. Could be that. It's also drier where I am now. So can I immigrate to Czechia easily? If you're sponsored, yeah, it's not so hard. Will you peer review Eric W.'s theory of geometric unity? No. No, I'm not going to. Why does Kent Hovind think it's impossible to measure the distances to stars? Because he's not educated in astrophysics, is what it boils down to. Can you smell a fart in space? I guess, yeah. How's the Arizona summer treating you? It's hot. Weird because scientism is a religion, right? No, I wouldn't say that scientism is a religion. I don't even know. I don't really know what that means, though. Do you think the multiverse is a possibility? Yeah, sure, but it depends on what you mean by multiverse. Thoughts on cubism? I don't know. I don't have like a good internal understanding of it, so I couldn't comment. What is the maximum of vector dimensions that can be comfortably calculated in a high-performance PC? It depends on what you're calculating. What are tomorrow? Wait, where did you move to? I moved back to Arizona. Too much lag. I'm aware. I know that there's a lot of lag. Sorry. Do you still think time itself began with the Big Bang? No, I don't think that. Isn't it true that once you have enough energy to break the gluon bond, another gluon is instantly created from that energy? Another quark is created from that energy, yes. What's your take on free will determinism? I'm a determinist, but I'm also a compatibilist, right? Because compatibilism is compatible with determinism. Can we use orbital speed to calculate the Earth's orbital speed along its axis? I don't know what that question means. What do you think about the Quran? I'm not convinced by it. I haven't read the entire thing, but like it seems like not particularly special. Is Q-top the most unstable particle we know of? It is. That is a fact, actually. It's a fact that Q-top is the most unstable particle. How far along is string theory research? They're making a lot of progress. Like, they're doing really, really well. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube or on TikTok, make sure to like the live. We can get more people in here with more questions. Are you a physicist? I'm a physicist / mathematician, depending on who you ask. What do you think about redshift bias between galaxies that rotate in opposite orientations? So you're talking about this new result that suggests that more stuff is rotating one way than another. I'm going to wait till we see more evidence. It's a little bit suspect because like we've seen billions of galaxies and they only looked at 300. So that's just a little bit suspect, but maybe it's true. Does quantum mechanics debunk determinism? No, not if you're a quantum determinist, which I am. What do you think about quantum entanglement? It's very interesting. How goes the job search? So I should answer. It's very interesting. It's just a phenomenon that arises from quantum mechanics. There's nothing super spooky about it once you look at the math. How goes the job search? I don't have a job yet, so I'm going to keep looking. I might just be a freelance physicist / mathematician for a year or so because I didn't get any jobs this cycle, and jobs in the US come in cycles. Very, very few come up after, once the summer comes around. But I might look for teaching positions, and I'll also be doing TikTok, and I'm still going to be doing research. I still have projects I'm working on. It was way more than 300 galaxies. The recent study that showed that there's a bias was like 350 galaxies or something, wasn't it? The old background, I always use this background for Ask a Physicist. Will we ever be free from antiquated and dogmatic religions? Perhaps. Maybe. Is time only relative to the nearest largest object, or is that our human way of perceiving time? I know time doesn't exist in a quantum state similarly. So time is kind of required for quantum systems to behave in a natural way. Time is relative to the inertial observer. That's the way that we should think about it in terms of relativity. Do you think gravity will ever be quantized? Maybe, or perhaps quantum mechanics will be geometrized. Would you teach? Yeah, absolutely. Do you know much about astrophysics? More than the average person, definitely. Thoughts on BGB theorem? It's more of a conjecture as far as I'm aware. But there's a paper that I need to read that makes that claim more precise. Are you considering roles in the private sector? Not yet. Well, am I crazy? Wait, am I crazy? Maybe because you're smaller on the screen, I can see the Feynman diagram. I think you can always see it. Thoughts on consciousness being fundamental? I'm not convinced. Did you apply to National Institutes for Standards? No, I didn't apply to NIST, no, because they're not looking for people like me. How much do you know about metaphysics? I've acquired some. Rob with the $2, all super chat statements are axiomatically true. True. Absolutely. Does your knowledge of physics inform any of your philosophical beliefs? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm a determinist / compatibilist is because of physics. Are you agnostic? I'm an agnostic atheist. Does quantum mechanics debunk... Oh, I already answered that. Never got my head around an infinite universe and an infinitely growing universe. Well, it might not be infinitely growing, but it is definitely it is potentially infinite, and it's growing. Those two things are not incompatible, but you have to be precise by what you mean by growing. How can we calculate the Earth's rotational speed along its axis and a satellite orbiting the Earth? We can just measure these things. Is time fundamentally real, or is it just an emergent property of change? That's a good question that we don't know the answer to. Don't you only need a Hilbert space or something for quantum mechanics? A Hilbert space, a state vector, and an evolution equation. Yes. What do you think of Q-Top? Not just dislike him, but specifically. Oh, I think he's a grifter who bought his followers. I remember you talking about Najera's beef with cotton gravity. He's my professor. It's real. That's a delight, Nicholas. I love that for you. You should show him the video, or don't. We might be free of ancient... does gravity bend light? Yes. What is the CP symmetry violation? Yeah, so CP symmetry stands for charge parity symmetry. And basically this means that if you swap all of the positive charges with negative charges, and you swap all of the left-handed things with right-handed things and vice versa, then you end up... you might expect that that wouldn't change any of your experimental outcomes, but it turns out that it actually does, that there is a distinction. And Professor Wu in the 1960s, she was brilliant and famous, or she got famous for this experiment, and she was a brilliant experimentalist. She actually proved that this is a thing that happens. Like we see that that experiments don't give you the same answer if you flip all of those things. And in fact, I think that she did her experiments with kaons, if I remember correctly. Or no, she did it with, no, she didn't do it with kaons, although kaons are a good example of this. She did it with cobalt, a cobalt isotope that was radioactive. Is singularity just another word for I don't know? No, it's a very specific thing in mathematics. Do you want to create a company or business with you? No, not really. Does the graviton exist? In some sense, yeah. In the sense that like we have a mathematical description of such a graviton. But it's not a fundamental description of a graviton because we don't have a fundamental theory of quantum gravity. Dan with the 5 Ron, I don't actually know what that means, but 5 Ron, let's go. Do you think quantum theory will explain how things work? Will we need another theory? Quantum theory seems true. The question is what kind of quantum theory is the right one? Also my data for stream. I do these pretty frequently. I just haven't been live in a while because I've been moving. Would physics work the same in a 2D world as a 3D world like ours? No, not at all. There's so many things that would have to be different. NIST has funding for relativistic correction work for radio and timekeeping. That's not really my area though, right? Do you believe that energy is not conserved in our universe when we consider long time spans? Yes, that seems to be the case. TikTok seems pretty laggy. It is, unfortunately. Are you considered... No, I'm not considering getting the Nintendo Switch 2. Is it feasible to use gravitational waves for space travel? No, not really. What do you think about the AI 2027 report? I haven't read it. What is many worlds? Why does it explain, and how confident are we in it? So I actually just put out a video that is kind of related to this, but many worlds is an interpretation of quantum mechanics. So it makes the same predictions as all of the other interpretations. This is just a different understanding of what those results, what those measurements mean. And essentially, the reason I prefer it is because in some sense, it's like the simplest view of quantum mechanics. It doesn't have like extra stuff going on in it that we haven't detected. And also it allows for determinism, which I like a lot. But how confident are we in it? We should be pretty confident. Insofar as quantum mechanics holds, many worlds is at least still viable. Do you agree consciousness is fundamental? I do not. Why did the washer fall through the bolt on my bunny cage? I don't know. Don't you do covariant topology? Do you mean... I don't really do topology. I do differential geometry, but relativistic corrections to GPS is not really like my thing, my jam. Is it possible, since everything is in a state of chaos until an observer, that an observer existed before we did and brought everything into order? No, not really. Because it's not true that everything is in a state of chaos until an observer. That's just not true. At least we don't have any reason to think that's true. How would the discovery of the graviton change physics? Well, it would allow us to actually give a description of quantum theory of gravity. That would certainly be useful. Did I hear wrong weeks ago that time was said to be a particle? Yeah, you probably heard wrong, or rather somebody probably reported wrong. Dude has answered more questions directly in 2 minutes than Jordan Peterson did his entire career. That's so true. I've just started reading Hyperspace, and the author speaks about Riemann changed the entire game around Euclidean physics. Yes, absolutely it does. So when we think of geometry, the geometry that you learn in high school is like the geometry of a sheet of paper. It's flat in some sense. And it's not just two-dimensional. It's like parallel lines never intersect, and that's just the geometry of Euclid, Euclidean geometry. But Riemann was kind of the pioneer who suggested, well, what if we consider the case where parallel lines could intersect? Or maybe they bend away from each other, or maybe they do all sorts of crazy things. And so Riemann really kind of asked the question of, can we have other types of geometries? And absolutely we can, and that's how we got general relativity, actually. Does the rare neutron decay into dark hydrogen and a neutrino seem like a possible dark matter? I heard about that. I haven't read it yet, so I can't comment, but it seemed like a cute idea. What about this new discovery of black hole with no event horizon? I haven't heard about that. Is there a direction to where the Big Bang was? It was everywhere. The Big Bang was everywhere. Do you know any secret EMF-based telecoms being used today? I don't. So, Josh, you have to be really, really careful about using AI for checking your theories, because at least ChatGPT and other AIs are kind of prone to be congratulatory and to be very positive towards your position. And so it might tell you that you're more insightful than you actually are. So you have to be really careful there. Do the other three forces require space-time to work? I mean, yeah, in a sense, right? Like they act over a distance. So what's the difference between speed and velocity? Velocity has a direction. Speed doesn't. Would simulating a universe with lower light speed and a larger Planck scale require less energy? Maybe. The Planck scale sets like a resolution limit in some sense, so you would need a less resolution, perhaps. Who's the best physicist in history? It's either Newton or Einstein. Did you see the G-2 stuff yesterday? I did. Unfortunately, because the theory is still up in the air, it's not really definitive as to what's going on. Why do we use virtual particles if they don't really exist? It's a convenient mathematical fiction. It makes for easy computations for organizing our thoughts. Do photons have momentum? Absolutely they do. Is Sean Carroll more of a scientist or a science communicator? In some sense, he's both. I would say he's probably more of a scientist. Fagend, thank you for the 24-month subscription. I would say he's more of a scientist because he does some science communication, but like he's an active researcher at the university that he works at. Like he works there, he publishes regularly. So yeah, I mean, seems like he's more of a scientist than a science communicator. Top 3 living physicists? That's really hard to say. Do you think the average person realizes that even being able to comprehend these topics and create your own theories puts them ahead of 99.9% of everyone else? Yeah, I don't know if the average person recognizes that. I have an interesting paper about motion as a fundamental concept in physical laws. So I have a policy of not reviewing theories of people who are not in the field, just because I don't have enough time. Explain the concept of gauge invariance in quantum field theory. So it's really involved, but the basic idea is that there are certain things that you can do to the formulas. There are certain things that you can do to the formulas that describe quantum field theory that keeps the answers you get the same, even though it looks different. And so those things that you can do to the formulas, they kind of represent some sort of rotation or some sort of like change in kind of like an abstract space. If you do those sorts of transformations and everything stays the same, and you can change it in different ways in different places, then that would be a gauge symmetry. And the fact that gauge symmetries exist, or in order to make, the fact that gauge symmetries exist means that you have forces. In fact, the only way to make gauge symmetries exist is to introduce a force. So that's why we say that, in some sense, forces are a result of local gauge symmetries. Yeah, the lag is because I'm on Wi-Fi. I need to get an Ethernet cable, I think. Newton was best for the time. Einstein was best for all time. Perhaps, yeah. Let me close my door really quick because there's some noise. Is consciousness part of physics in any way? I mean, not really. Not really. Can you do a video on Kirchhoff's second circuit loop rule? Maybe, maybe not. If I can make a good hook for it, I will. Sean is an excellent science communicator. He's very, very good. And he actually wrote the textbook that I learned general relativity out of, so I really appreciate him for that as well. He's not only an excellent science communicator, he's also an excellent teacher, like professor. With all the knowledge you currently have, what's your conclusion of what to do with your life? Well, I'd like to keep doing physics/mathematics, so Q-Top out there talking shit on you on his live. Yeah, I'm sure he is. I live rent-free in his head. Is it likely the universe is eternal, and if not, why? It's at least, it seems at least possible, maybe even plausible that it's eternal, but we don't have enough data. Are those cats on your shirt? Yes, they are. I know it's very laggy. I'm very aware. I'm on Wi-Fi. I'm going to get an Ethernet cable today. Can you explain the Born rule? The Born rule just says how to relate amplitudes. These are quantities of the wave function that you can calculate. So these are things about the wave function. It relates the wave function amplitudes to probabilities that you measure in experiments. That's roughly it. If I graduate in computational logic, can I enroll in mathematical and theoretical physics? I mean, you could, but you might have a hard time. Who do you think is most brilliant physicist? It's either Newton or Einstein. It's got to be. Ed Witten probably gets honorary mention because he's the only physicist, as far as I'm aware, that has a Fields Medal. Yeah, I know. The stream is unwatchable on TikTok. It's better on YouTube, but I'm very aware. I'm going to fiddle with it after the stream. But in the meantime, I can still answer questions. What is the Eureka laws of physics discovered by Dr. Archimedes? Well, he wasn't a doctor, but the Eureka laws, I think that his, if I remember correctly, the history is that he realized that you can measure the volume of something by seeing how much water it displaced, if I remember correctly. I would stream another day. I'm going to, but I'm not going to stop the stream today just because there's lag. I can still answer questions and help out the community. Why does Tuft not like the Copenhagen interpretation? I also heard that Many Worlds interpretation was disproved recently. Many Worlds was not disproved. I just put out a video on it. Tuft doesn't like the Copenhagen interpretation. Who knows why? Really? Does the Born rule measure something akin to entanglement in the Many Worlds interpretation? What? I have to put a filter on my mic really quick. Okay, I think that's better. Hopefully that's better. I can't put a filter on my mic on TikTok, unfortunately. So why is it that the orbital period of a satellite can be calculated without the mass of the satellite? Because it turns out the mass of the satellite doesn't play a role. It cancels out in the equations. Yeah, I need to, sorry, I'll have to deal with some stuff later, but can I actually put a noise gate on audio effects maybe? No, I cannot. Okay, whatever. I can't fix TikTok, but YouTube is good, so go watch on YouTube if you want to watch on YouTube. Could one be a self-taught physicist? You could, but it'd be very, very hard, and there's not really any good recent historical examples of self-taught physicists making significant progress. Explain the Einstein field equations and discuss the physical meaning of the Einstein tensor and stress energy tensor. I'm not ChatGPT, but I can still help. So the Einstein field equations tell you the relationship between matter and curvature. So they say that where there's matter, there's a certain type of curvature. And because that certain type of curvature is related to another type of curvature, that curvature can kind of spread out from where the matter is. And that's how we get gravity, essentially. Do you do reviews of amateur papers? Not really, no. Both TikTok and YouTube are unwatchable? Really? YouTube's unwatchable? Bummer. Planning to do a master's, which I do it in? That's up to you. Depends on what you're interested in. Question about time. Does time have a beginning, like it started at the Big Bang? So most physicists absolutely do not believe that time started at the Big Bang. Why are there still physicists who don't surf or skate? Good question. Thoughts on John Lennox? I don't know a lot about him. Please explain going at the speed of light and coming back to Earth 4 million years later. So when the faster you're moving through space, the slower you move through time. That's the basic gist. And so if you travel a lot through space very, very quickly, then you're going to travel less through time. So 4 million years to someone on Earth might be 10 minutes to you. Could we render a cubic meter of space on Earth? I don't know what that question means. TikTok ultra laggy, but YouTube is fine. Yeah, so I don't I don't actually know why TikTok is so laggy, but I'll have to fiddle around with it later. Physics or mathematics? I do both. What's your take on emergence? I think it's a very, very powerful idea. What quantum? Oh, we have $20 from Fear's Interaction. Thank you. You need to travel 3,000 miles on Earth's surface as quickly as possible and survive the trip unharmed. You can use any technology, theoretical or existing, as long as it will fit in, say, a small closet. Any creative ideas? Do I have if I have an unlimited budget, any technology, theoretical or existing, as long as it will fit in. So, a small closet, that's tough. The thing is I don't think anything that can go 3,000 miles self-propelled can fit in a small closet, right? If it needs to fit in a small closet, well, the issue is like, how much can you miniaturize like a rocket? Because like a rocket is probably the easiest way to do it, like a rocket-powered jet. But how small can you make it? Like, is there like hypothetical fuel that has like a, okay, how about this? How about an antimatter-fueled rocket that has like a few micrograms of antimatter in it or something like that, that powers a jet engine. So it's air breathing and has like osmium shielding or something. And so it's very, very small. I don't know, maybe that. That's hard. It's a hard question. Maybe I'll make a video about it if I can come up with a good answer. Is it possible that the black hole that was imaged is actually a toroid and misrepresented? Not really. Grimlock with the $10 support from my local physicist. I appreciate you. You going to the science fair this month? There's a science fair? I had no idea. Maybe I will. Grimlock, you're in the state, right? So maybe you could tell me about this. Sorry, is it possible that the black hole that was imaged a year ago is actually a toroid and misrepresented? From IFO Connoisseur with the 5 Canadian, thank you. Probably not. I mean, like, the thing is what we imaged is the accretion disk. We didn't actually image the black hole. But that's the closest thing that we get, right? So, and the accretion disk is roughly disk-shaped with a hole in the middle. But that's what we expect for a black hole. If we froze everything in the universe and then unfroze, would time elapse? I don't know what that question means. What does that mean? What do you think about D-Wave Quantum Company? I haven't heard a lot about them in the past, in the recent past, but they were really, really a big deal a while ago. Is there any physics pointing to anti-gravity? Not really, no. Can a new particle be created for anti-gravity? Not as far as we know, no. Thoughts on the muon G-2 discrepancy? We don't know if there's a discrepancy, that's the problem. How can Schrodinger's cat be both alive and dead simultaneously? In different branches of the wave function, there's no trouble. So the disconnect between quantum mechanics and GR is the inability to discretize the GR math. We know quantum mechanics works in discrete quanta. What stops GR from being quantized? It's not a discretization thing. It's actually much, much deeper than that, because quantum field theory is not discrete, right? Quantum field theory is a theory of continuous fields. The issue is that we don't know how to write down so the prime issue is the way that we've done quantum field theory in the past is that we start with a classical theory, like electromagnetism, and then with a classical theory, and then there's kind of like a set of rules that are like known to work that convert that classical theory into a quantum theory, and that process is called renormalization. And the way renormalization works is that if you just naively just demand that your classical theory is quantum, you get some infinities, so you have to add some extra terms to your quantum theory to make it make sense, so it produces measurable measurable finite results. Now this is like an algorithmic process, so it's super, super well defined. The trouble is that when each term you add basically requires an additional experiment to pin down what that term should be. But if you tried to do the same procedure for general relativity, you would need an infinite number of terms that you'd have to add, which means that you need to run an infinite number of experiments to even make your theory predictive, which is just like, it's just not possible. So we run into a serious issue. Okay, what is the significance of time-independent Schrodinger equation in stationary state problems? Oh, well, it just tells you what the energy eigenvalues are. Is quantum gravity discrete or continuous? We don't know. We have no idea. Is it likely that the universe is eternal, and if not, why? We don't know, but I kind of lean towards it being eternal. Could gravitational waves be dangerous? Yes, I made a video about this a while ago. You'd have to be very, very close to colliding black holes, though, in order for it to be actually dangerous. What do you think life exists outside our solar system? Almost certainly, yeah. What do you think of string theory? I think it's a good theory, but it's probably not the theory for a universe. Is string theory just a fancy transformation from Hilbert's base to Lagrangian? Not quite, no. What is the future mass commercial use for carbon fiber? Years ago, media claimed it would replace lots of other materials, but has been widely adopted by auto and aero. Carbon fiber is used everywhere. It's super useful. In fact, it was used on the Titan submersible. Whoops. Thoughts on the mu on G-2 experiment discrepancy? We don't know if there's a discrepancy. That's the issue. The theory is not quite there. Will you peer review Eric W.'s paper? No, I will not. Which disciplines within physics do you believe are oversaturated and undersaturated? Personally, I think astrophysics may be over, but I don't really know. Astrophysics still has there's still a lot of room for growth. I don't actually know if there's any that are oversaturated. There are, but I'm not familiar with a lot of the other fields. Like, I don't know, I don't know how many papers are being published daily for the other fields. But there is currently not a lot of people who are doing, like, theoretical biophysics. This is biophysics kind of from a physics point of view, rather than theoretical biophysics from, like, a biology point of view. So make of that what you will. I don't think that there's any particular branch of physics that's, like, overfunded right now. What's your best description of time in relation to fabric of space and movement? Time is a distinguishing feature, or it's a way of distinguishing between events that are co-located. They exist at the same place. How can Schrodinger's cat be both alive and dead simultaneously? In different branches of the wave function, there's no issue. What's your opinion on infinite regression being possible? It seems like there's no issue. Would a CME large enough to disrupt the global power grid subject us to dangerous radiation? Probably not, no. How can I build a particle accelerator in your room? Get a high voltage transformer. That'll do it, but don't. It'll kill you. I know this isn't a college lecture, but you're only touching on topics slightly. It leaves us with more questions. You're also mentioning a lot of theoretical science. Yes, so leaving you with more questions is a good thing. And yes, I am mentioning a lot of theoretical science. I'm a theorist. What do you expect? Can you explain the Casimir effect? But by the way, most of the stuff that I talk about is experimentally backed, just saying. The Casimir effect is the observed, or rather it's the theoretically predicted and then also observed attractive force between two conducting plates that are very, very close to each other. They're not charged, there's no electricity or anything, but they are very, very close to each other and they're conducting. And so they attract for one reason or another. And this can be explained via quantum field theory. The best explanation, though, is, I mean, it is a quantum effect. And the way to think of it is sort of as like a residual electromagnetic effect. That's the best way, in my view, to think about it. Can you explain cohomology to you? No. No. I don't think I understand cohomology well enough to explain it to myself, to be honest. Like, I do have a sense of it, but I don't have, like, good intuition. What do you think about solid-state physics? It's called condensed matter now, but condensed matter is easily the field that always gets the most funding because it's the most practically applicable. So make of that what you will. If the universe stopped expanding, would that be detectable? Yeah, sure, definitely. CMEs theoretically will not affect small electronics, but will knock out the large power grids. Your mobile will likely still work, but no cell towers will be active and no power to charge it. Yeah, so it really depends on how big it is. You ever heard of Ning Li? Is she the woman who did the anti-gravity experiments? If so, yeah, and I made a video about it a while ago. What kind of physics jobs can I get with only a bachelor's degree in physics? Not many. What's your best evidence for intelligent life beyond Earth? Oh, I don't have evidence for it. Well, okay, I guess there's some evidence, namely that we know that amino acids exist in space, right? We know that life can occur in the universe, and the universe is very, very big. So it seems plausible, at least, that life could form elsewhere, just statistically. How many articles do you read each day on average? It really depends, and it really depends on what kinds of papers I'm reading. Could the unknown radio signals Earth had picked up be remnants of objects engulfed in black holes? I actually made a video about the WOW signal a while ago, and we actually have a pretty good understanding as to what caused it now. Theoretically, if you were to time travel, would even be able to return to your dimension? It's not a separate dimension, but no, you would never be able to leave. Why did you run from Q-Top? I didn't. He kicked me. Are there plausible mathematical routes for introducing emergent or composite space-time structures into the standard model without violating renormalizability? Not that I'm aware of. Okay, loop quantum gravity sort of is, but it's never been merged with the standard model. What's the best hypothesis on matter-antimatter asymmetry? I don't actually think that there are any standing, kind of accepted hypotheses right now. What might be the best way to understand and keep up with which fields of physics research are most active currently? I mean, you could just follow like the different archive groupings and then see which ones get the most publications, I guess. I know there's Verilog. What's outside the universe? As far as we know, there is no outside the universe. That's kind of like the definition. What was your reaction to Sean versus Weinstein? It was embarrassing for Weinstein. Sean, how dare you? Why does light slow down when it goes into water? There's a theory on this in the textbook. Yeah, this is just called refraction. And there's a good understanding of why it happens. I actually have a video on it from a while ago that you could go watch if you want to see more details. I don't think the WoW signal is anything artificial. It's almost certainly not. At what point should an effective field theory be abandoned or restructured? When data discrepancies emerge or when internal mathematical inconsistencies appear first? If there are internal mathematical inconsistencies, you shouldn't, like if there's genuine mathematical inconsistencies, you shouldn't use it. When data discrepancies emerge, you should figure out whether that's a data issue or a theory issue. If it's a theory issue, then you abandon the theory or you improve the theory. Was your last job a math or a physics one? It was a math job. Sort of. I mean, I wrote physics papers while at the university, but I was in a math department. Did you debate Q-top again recently? Yeah, it was this morning. I only read the instructions of the bottle of shampoo when on the toilet. What is logic? It's a set of rules for coming to rational conclusions. That's one way to do it. Mathematical consistencies is renormalization. It's not a mathematical inconsistency. Momo with the space cat, thank you. It's not a mathematical consistency. It's just an algorithm to produce like consistent numerical outputs from theoretical inputs. Yeah, Weinstein's how dare you it was like Greta Thunberg. That's how it seemed. How is gravity able to hold all the ocean water to Earth too weak to pull a butterfly to it? Yeah, so gravity involves three things. It involves the distance between the two things. It involves the mass of thing A and the mass of thing B. So the bigger the masses are, the bigger the forces are. So in particular, the Earth's mass is the same for both the water and the butterfly. But the butterfly's mass is much, much, much smaller than the mass of the ocean. So the force on the ocean is much, much, much greater than the force on the butterfly. So the butterfly can overcome the force, but the ocean, well, nothing is pushing the ocean up. What do you think that the double slit experiment shows the existence of a higher power? I don't. For someone doing philosophy of physics, how deep into the standard model GR does one need to get? You should know both of those things fairly well. Otherwise, you'll just look like a fool in front of people who actually do. In order to be a good philosopher of physics, you should be a physicist. Physicist first, philosopher second. When you tell someone random you're a physicist, how often do they interpret that as you're an astronomer or a cosmologist? Most of the time, yeah. They assume I'm an astrophysicist. Momo with the space dog, again, thank you. I appreciate you. Already got a new PC? Yeah, I bought it yesterday for $700. Although it blue screened yesterday, which I don't really love. What's your field of study? I do differential geometry and general relativity. That's probably the best way to explain it simply. Can you envision a consistent framework where information conservation is maintained through topological mappings between branes, even if energy does not appear to be? Well, if you take quantum field theory seriously, then information needs to be conserved. But you'd have to give me more details. Thoughts on Michio Kaku? He did very, very brilliant work in the 80s and 90s, and then he kind of fell off. Why is the sun's orbit around the Milky Way galaxy not elliptical? It probably is. Yeah, oceans don't have wings. Good point. Why does the photoelectric effect happen mostly with inner shell electrons instead of outer shell? Somebody brought that up recently. I don't know. I don't even know if that's true. I haven't heard that before. But so I can look into it. Definitely an interesting question, if it's true. Do you personally think the observable universe is a substantial portion of the entire universe? Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think that there's not outside the observable universe, absolutely. What is loop quantum gravity? I have a video on this from a while ago, if I remember correctly, but it's just another theory of quantum gravity, basically. I love the new camera. It's actually the same camera, just much better lighting. I have a proper green screen behind me. I have like studio lighting that I got a steal from somebody who's, you know, getting rid of all of their studio lighting, so I have studio lighting now. But it's the same camera. Probably a better PC though. Were you ever interested in string theory? Yeah, absolutely. Why can't we use quantum entanglement like cosmic Bluetooth? Well, you can't communicate via entanglement because because entanglement is just about correlations. You can't actually choose what, like, let's say if thing A entangled with thing B, when you interact with thing A, something happens to thing B instantly. But the point is when you interact with thing A, you can't figure out what thing B is going to do instantly because you can't choose what thing A does. Is that debate online from this morning? No, I only recorded the aftermath. Why does the moon's gravity affect the ocean and not so much the lakes? That's because there's more ocean. So the ocean is spread out over a larger area. So the difference in gravitational pull between one end of the ocean and the other end of the ocean is much, much bigger because it's spread out over a larger area. For a lake, though, a lake is not spread out over a very big area. So the difference in gravitational pull between the two places, between the two ends of the lake, is just not very different. And the oceans are made of molecules, not a single mass. That's true, too. Do physicists consider gravity to be a force or merely treat it like one for convenience? I consider it to be a force. But that's just a definition of what a force is. Did you read Daniel Blinford's PhD dissertation on cosmic skepticism? It's what inspired me to do philosophy of physics. No, most people don't actually read dissertations, turns out. Mine's been maybe read by like 4 people, maybe 5. Your thought on centripetal force? There is no centripetal force. There's centrifugal force and there's centripetal acceleration. How can information escape black holes? Well, it depends on what black holes are. But the general gist is quantum tunneling. It can tunnel out of the horizon. What's the evidence for determinism rather than free will? Well, the evidence is just that it seems like our minds are really inextricably linked to our brains, and our brains are physical things that obey physical laws, which are deterministic as far as is relevant. Is it still thought that antiparticles are normal particles moving backwards in time? Well, no, they aren't. But like mathematically, they're similar. How do discoveries work in physics today? Do people just have epiphanies randomly? I feel like working on things this complicated would be very difficult. That's really hard to describe. So sometimes it is just an epiphany. Like you're in the shower and you're thinking about something, you're like, but what if? But most of the time, it'll be something like you're working on a problem and then you read something else, and that gets you some incremental progress on this problem, but it doesn't quite work. So you go read something else, and that changes your idea ever so slightly, and it's just like gradual change of an idea until it ends up being the thing that you want it to be. Windows, Mac OS, or Linux distro? It's Windows. Do you see life as a bunch of chain of chemical reactions? Yes, I do. Why is determinism greater than free will in your mind? It just seems more correct. Why did Einstein deny quantum mechanics? He didn't. He was actually one of the founders. Have you read Determined by Sapolsky? I have not. Do you believe in multiverse theory, the many worlds interpretation? I do think that the many worlds interpretation is a good interpretation. I wouldn't call that a multiverse, though. Any reason to believe we may develop a method to manipulate space-time curvature? We already can. You just have mass. But no, otherwise, no. Is the singularity from the Big Bang Theory still the most held belief as the initial state? No, it's not the most held belief by a long shot. How long did you go to school for? 4 years for my undergrad, 2 years for my master's, 5 years for my PhD. What would a universe look like with multiple time dimensions? Well, time travel would be a thing. Definitely. Any reason to believe we may develop a method to what is the biggest open questions research direction in differential geometry, general relativity? I don't know what the biggest ones are. Probably questions about like, in differential geometry, probably things about like smooth structures on 4 manifolds. It's hard to say what the biggest questions are, though. There are questions that I care about, but are you a northerner? No, I'm from the Southwest. I have a pretty neutral accent, I would say. What are your thoughts on density matrix realism as opposed to wave function realism? It's an interesting thought. I haven't read much about it, though. live computation of the invariant amplitude contribution for that Feynman diagram behind you. No, I'm not doing that. It's been so long since I've actually done proper QFT. What's the difference between inertial and non-inertial reference frames? Inertial reference frames are those in which there are no non-inertial forces that you feel. So in a non-inertial reference frame, you will feel a force that seems to have no cause, right? In an inertial reference frame, you will not feel any such forces unless there's like something applying those forces to you. Is Europe better at physics than the US? They do different physics in Europe. Your voice is very monotone, so I couldn't place it. Well, sorry about that. Does the magnetic field of a solenoid depend on the area of the coiled wire? Not the magnetic field of the solenoid, but the flux of the solenoid does. Yeah. Did you hear about the paper relating the double slit experiment being figured out? Yeah, I just actually put out a video about it. How often do you do topology in your work? Rarely. I never really do topology, but I sometimes use results from topology. Do we feel forces or accelerations? Well, we feel forces in the form of accelerations. Insights on cultural differences in academia between Europe and America? America's a lot louder, a lot more open, a lot friendlier as far as I've seen, but I haven't seen a whole lot in either place. Do you know everything about physics? No, absolutely not. Is it mathematically possible that certain truths about physical law might only be accessible from within specific topological or metric frameworks, i.e. frame-dependent ontologies? I suspect not, because those seem like choices. At what level of mass does something bend spacetime? Everything bends spacetime in principle. Are you a teacher? No, not right now. I'm looking for teaching jobs, though, and other jobs as well. Thoughts on the new DESI data? I made a video about it a month ago. You should go watch it. Has anyone asked you how you are today? No, I'm doing all right, though, thank you. I appreciate that question. What branch of physics do you think is most difficult math? Some kind of field theory, definitely. Like algebraic field theory, probably. I don't know. That's really hard to say. Do you think the universe is infinite, or does it have an edge? It almost certainly doesn't have an edge. That'd be very, very strange. Have you heard about this idea of neutron decay, that 10% of resulting hydrogen atoms are not detectable? I've heard about it. I haven't read into it, though, so I can't comment. What exactly do you do at a physics math conference? You give presentations, you listen to presentations, and then you do a lot of networking and collaboration. I love going to them. They're like the best part of the job, because you get to hear new things, and you get to meet with people. Yeah, so it's great. Have you published anything? Yeah, I've published like a dozen papers in the last 4 years or something. Something like that. I'd have to go back and recount. I have a few things that are going to be done soon as well, so hopefully we'll see 2 more publications in the next few months. Do you lean towards structural realism in physics, i.e. that reality is a mathematical structure, or do you see mathematics as a tool? I see mathematics as a tool, essentially. How about the temporal edge of the universe as the universe expands in time? I don't think that there is a temporal edge either. I proposed a paper through Linktree. I generally don't review theories or papers of people who are not in the field. Where can we find stuff you've published? You can't, because I don't make my real name known. Because I've gotten threats because of the lives that I do. And I don't like getting threats. Is it possible for a laser beam to carry excited atoms and rapidly release this trapped energy in the form of an explosion when it starts burning through something? I don't know. You'd have to ask an engineer that. Do you think a photon particle acts like a stream? No, it's a wave packet. A photon is a wave packet, depending on what description of a photon you're giving. If it's genuinely localized as a particle, it's like in an area. It's like some spread out over some small area. Gödel's incompleteness suggests that if we could fully describe everything using determinism, we'd effectively be outside the system. So the very fact we can't may imply we're inside it. Well, that's not an implication of Gödel's incompleteness. Gödel's incompleteness is about formal mathematical systems. It says nothing about determinism. Now, it could be that the universe is deterministic, but also you can't fully describe it with, a first order system of logic that has the systems, or that has the features that Gödel's incompleteness theorem requires. 12 papers in 4 years is impressive. Is that relatively high? It depends. I know people who have done way, way more. Physicists tend to publish more than mathematicians do. So it's high for mathematicians. It's probably on the low end for physicists, but I'm something between the two. So are you straight? I am. Does proving the Riemann hypothesis have any current implications in physics? Not any serious ones, no. What is teleparallel gravity? It's a description of gravity that doesn't use space-time curvature, but instead uses something called torsion, which is very interesting. Does bro even see our message? Yeah, absolutely. Why do holography and emergence fix physics for you, improve God? Okay. Why do theists claim that this is not a theism live today. Can Tesla's idea of wireless power transfer be fully captured by Maxwell's equations? Yeah. You kind of look like the German version of my dad. Okay. When an anomaly like mu1g minus 2 persists across independent data sets, do you think it's more likely to require... David, we've had this conversation already. When did physics feel less like math and more like understanding the bigger picture of physics? When? I don't know what you mean by when, but like, I don't know, they kind of feel the same to me. Like when I figure out that like some theory of physics that we know works, like relativity, has some really, really neat implication about physics, it feels like I'm doing math because I'm taking the mathematics and using it to learn something about the world. We treat mathematics as purely instrumental. Is there still value in exploring formal structures like some non-standard cardinalities or modified algebra, purely as organizational tools for a phenomenon? Sure, why not? I don't see an issue with that. Are you American or European? I'm American. On what factors moment of inertia of a body moving around a circle depend on? So if the axis is the center of the circle, then it'll depend on the distance from the center of the circle to the object, and it will depend on the moment of inertia of the body about itself. Do you ever ask flat earthers to use trig? They don't know what trig is. I love math and chemistry, but don't have any degree yet. Any that you recommend? Get a bachelor's in one of them. Can't hurt. Why does water always find level? Because it's a fluid. That's what fluids do when they're subject to uniform force. Is your wife a scientist too? Nope, she is not. Could a chain of gravitationally bound galaxies exist across distances vast enough that the expansion of the universe wouldn't pull them apart? That's a good question. You're essentially asking... I suppose it probably could, but not in our universe because the density... Well, okay. So in our universe, that would be a big sign of like anisotropy, that the universe, or sorry, non-homogeneity, that the universe is different in different places. But in a universe where that happens, you absolutely could have that, yeah. It just would be a very strange universe because it wouldn't be the same in all directions. Is water wet? Yes. Can you tell us more of the false vacuum state we could possibly be in? Yeah, so the idea is that the Higgs boson, we generally think of the Higgs field, not the boson, sorry. We think of the Higgs field as kind of resting at the bottom of a well. Like the field is at the bottom of the well and it can vibrate, or it can oscillate back and forth along the bottom of the well, and that's what the Higgs boson is. It's a quantized oscillation there. But it could be that that bottom of the well is not the actual bottom, that there's just like hills around it, but then there's a deeper bottom of the well somewhere else, and that would be the false vacuum. And it seems like we might be in one of those. And if that happens, and then somehow the quantum field tunnels through to the lower well, the lower bottom of the well, well, then the universe would change significantly. What made you want to start a YouTube channel and interact with people publicly? I actually started on TikTok, and then I moved over to YouTube because, well, or I expanded to YouTube. But I started on TikTok because, well, a whim, I guess. He said that when making discoveries, you read papers and adjust your ideas. As a mathematical physicist, do you find math or physics papers more helpful? It depends on what kind of project I'm working on. If I'm working on a physics project or like a more physicsy project, then I'll read more physics papers unless I need some mathematical insight for whatever I'm trying to do. if I'm working on a math project, physics papers are rarely useful, although there was one instance in the past for a paper that was published last year, or maybe 2 years ago or something like that, where I had to take an insight from, that was really well known in the physics community. It's something called the Gribov ambiguity, or the Grimov ambiguity rather, which is really well known in the QFT world in physics, but it's not really known in the differential geometry world. And so I had to grab that from physics to kind of get the right insight to answer a question that I was curious about in the mathematical paper. Can feeding someone a baguette force them to think gay thoughts? Yes, actually. Would you agree that the universe is emergent? If so, what substrate would you posit? I don't know. I would not. I'm agnostic on that. Did you always want to be a physicist? Yeah, essentially, since I was like 7 or 8 or something like that. Can you explain the best theory you have for how the universe came into existence before the Big Bang? Well, I kind of lean towards it having always existed. Sir, in universe, why temperature is uniform everywhere on cosmological scale? So the mainstream consensus answer for that question is inflation. Basically, the universe wasn't uniform, but then there was a period of inflation where the universe expanded so fast that it basically smoothed out the non-uniformities. Are you a fan of John Lennox? No, not really. I don't really know much of his stuff. How connected are geometrical topology and physics? I mean, topology shows up. Geometry is basically all of modern physics, though. Geometry and algebra. Have the atoms were made up of existed in some form or another eternally? Not atoms, but perhaps the fundamental fields that make up atoms, yeah. Is it viable to model a black hole entirely as a finite dynamic horizon without invoking an interior? Yeah, you could. Would GR or QFT support that surface-only approach? You could model it that way and then just be agnostic about what happens on the inside, but there must be an inside, right? Like, the space-time doesn't stop there. But you could be agnostic about what the inside is. Do you think the quantum eternity theorem is reliable? Well, yeah, it's a theorem. The question is just that, do the hypotheses hold? Maybe not. What's the job market like for physicists? It's tough. Do you see any value in extending holographic encoding mechanisms like ADF-CFT to flat or DS spaces? Yes, absolutely. If you can make that happen, you should. There is a principle called celestial holography, which is the attempt to extend holography to flat spaces. The attempt to extend holography to de Sitter spacetimes is much, much harder and potentially false, or potentially just not possible. But we kind of live, at least it seems like we live in a de Sitter universe, so. Do you like philosophy? I dabble, yeah. Could you explain what your research was on? Well, it's still on. I do differential geometry and relativity, so I study the geometry of systems that don't change when you rescale them in an arbitrary way. So this is conformal geometry. And then I kind of use these tools to study things like black holes. I've also kind of dabbled in quantum gravity stuff. I've dabbled in like some cosmology as well. What reference frame for cosmic age of the universe? We use the reference frame where the cosmic microwave background radiation is the same or approximately the same in all directions. This looks like a new computer. It is a new computer, yeah. Because I moved and I had to sell my old one. Say, old timer, what's your thoughts on those that want to disband the gravity theory? Well, go ahead. Good luck, I guess. What's your explanation for why you lean toward it always existing? I want to learn more about this. It's more philosophically satisfying, and it's at least consistent with the data. And like quantum mechanics seems to want the universe to have always existed. So it's kind of like an intuition based off of like what I know about quantum mechanics, what I know about relativity, and what I know about quantum gravity. But like there's no like hard evidence for it. Blitz really just a mathematician in a lab coat. True, it's true, absolutely true. Are there any areas in modern physics that are not explored in your experience? No, otherwise if I knew about them, then they probably would have been explored. Did you get the latest Doom? I didn't. Are all subatomic particles made out of quarks? No, there are leptons, like they're called leptons, an example of which would be an electron, another example would be a neutrino. These are not made out of quarks. In your own opinion, does the institution you complete your PhD at accurately reflect how much you'll impact the field? It probably is a good indicator for how you will actually impact the field, but it's probably not a good indicator for how you could impact the field given the chance. So what is true is that if you get a PhD from Harvard, you're more likely to get a job, a tenure track job, than if you get a PhD from no-name state school. That's just a fact, because you're better connected, you have more prestige. Now, does that mean that people at Harvard, all else being equal, are better scientists, better mathematicians or whatever, than people at no-name university? Not necessarily. So unfortunately, there is a degree of elitism that we kind of just accept because there's not really a good way to otherwise like evaluate people. How's the job search going? Well, I mean, as I'm sure you know, looking for jobs in the summer is really kind of it doesn't really work. So, you know, I'm applying to jobs that are open. Otherwise, I'm going to do TikTok for like temporarily, and I'm going to live off of my savings and my wife getting a job. So, I'm obviously I'm going to keep looking, but the next cycle starts in 2 or 3 months anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Thoughts on the attacks on many world interpretation based on conservation? I haven't seen the thing from Collins and Popescu. And the Hiroshima lab, I just posted a video about that, so go watch that if you want to see my video on the Hiroshima lab thing about the many worlds interpretation. How much does your field overlap with the efforts to attain sustainable nuclear fusion energy? It doesn't at all. Do you find human intuitions to be deceptive or unreliable? How is this corrected for? It depends. Probably remedial question. Does evidence largely suggest or push back against several dimensions? There are at least 4 space-time dimensions. As far as we can tell, those are the only ones, the ones that we experience. We have no evidence for anything else. As you travel closer to the speed of light, does your increased energy mass bend spacetime? No. You don't have more mass, you do have more energy, but no, it actually doesn't bend spacetime. Interestingly enough. What did you major in at college? Just physics? I got a bachelor's in physics and a bachelor's in mathematics. Thoughts on some creationists lately pointing to the lithium discrepancy as evidence against the Big Bang nucleosynthesis? Well, look, so they've been doing that forever. It is a point of contention for Big Bang nucleosynthesis, but Big Bang nucleosynthesis is like really complicated. So what would falsify the idea that horizon dynamics alone encode all physical observables of a black hole, assuming you're agnostic about the interior? What would falsify that idea? Well, if you detect something that isn't encoded by the horizon dynamics, right? Like, can you talk faster? Sorry, I'll do my best. Is Eric Weinstein's paper actually useless like Sean Carroll claims? Probably. What do you think made the great minds in physics so fruitful in their thinking? I think it was time and place, mostly. Like, there are great minds in every generation, but I think it was time and place. The turn of the 20th century and the turn of the 17th century, or the 18th century, I guess, were both times where we had unprecedented new instruments that could make unprecedented new experimental discoveries. And so it just happens to be the case that the people who were born around that time had a lot of new data to work with. This is Newton and also all of his colleagues, and this is, you know, the relativity and quantum revolutions of the early 20th century. Many worlds is kind of superfluous without non-perturbative QFT. With it, its branches would be straws, not trees, so I don't know what you mean by straws, but the lighter the vehicle, the less stopping or moving affects the passenger. No, that's not true. Can we measure the strong nuclear force? Indirectly, yeah. Do you think progress in de Sitter holography will come from adapting celestial methods or from entirely new bulk boundary correspondence specific to cosmology? That's a good question that I don't know the answer to. People are trying to extend the celestial methods to de Sitter, but as far as I know, they're not being super successful. What branch of mathematics do you believe will most probably never have any physical application? I don't think that there is any. Is gravity proven or just a theory? It's a real thing. It's a real observed phenomenon. It's observed. Is it possible that black hole has terminal density and new matter actually increases its radius? Yeah, if you throw more matter into a black hole, the the event horizon gets bigger, and if there is a core, the core would probably get bigger too. How do we know so much about black holes just by observation? Turns out that we're really good at observing things, right? Do you believe that a graviton really does exist? I mean, in some sense, probably, yeah. If there is a quantum theory of gravity, then almost certainly there would be some kind of graviton. If we take a planet composed entirely from water and we place it in the Goldie zone, so it's liquid water, will it dissolve due to rotation? No rock core, only liquid water? No, but it wouldn't be liquid everywhere. There would be solids near the core. It'd be ice. A different kind of ice, but it'd be ice nonetheless. Are we living in a holographic universe? I kind of suspect not. Why don't we know what causes gravity? We do. Matter. Matter causes gravity. Quantum fields cause gravity. Stuff with energy, momentum, pressure, stress, all these things cause gravity. Why is the Kretschmann scalar important in GR? It's not so important, but it's a good measure of the scale of the curvature, like how big the curvature is in a coordinate-independent way. Did you ever consider engineering over physics? No, not even once. If black holes are surface-only systems, is there theoretical value in exploring multi-layered causal boundaries, e.g. inner versus outer horizon influence on information? I mean, sure, I guess. Do you think time traveling could become possible in the future? I suspect not. No, not to the past. Have you ever taken any quantum chemistry? No, I haven't. What should someone do to prepare for a BS in physics? Make sure that your calculus is really up to par, because it's just basically calculus. How do you imagine physics without imaginary numbers? Why would I do that? Can you explain negative energy in the Dirac equation? It's just a different solution. It's not negative energy, it's just a negative, in some sense, a negative particle. It's antimatter. What are you drinking? It's just water. Would you agree that the classical world governed by deterministic laws is the domain of observable phenomena while the quantum world underlies subjective experience and consciousness? No, I wouldn't say that. What was your impression of the Eric Weinstein and Sean Carroll debate on Piers Morgan's podcast? Eric Weinstein looked like a mook, but I'm biased because I really like Sean Carroll. Are you having guests on? Not today. Not today. How do you have the patience to deal with pseudoscience individuals? That's a good question. I guess I just have experience dealing with it. Is it possible that the speed of light is localized in our region of the universe? I suppose it's possible, but it seems very unlikely. Because that would mean that the laws of physics are different in different places, and as far as we can tell, the galaxies we look at are basically behaving exactly as we would expect them to. Thoughts on For the Gifted Amateur series on QFTGR? I haven't heard of it. Is the Andromeda galaxy moving towards us faster than the expansion of the space between Andromeda and the Milky Way? Yes, it is. How does the first law of thermodynamics hold up with the redshift of light from distant stars? The first law of thermodynamics only holds in a system that's a closed system. Insofar as our universe is expanding, the first law of thermodynamics does not apply. At least on a galactic or on a cosmic scale. We live in a black hole. I don't think that there's sufficient evidence to make that claim. If you had to give a name to your philosophical framework for morals, what would it be? It's agential, or it's a praise or relativism, or praise or subjectivism, something like that. How are the weak force and the electromagnetic force connected? By a very, very brilliant set of individuals in the 60s. Basically, if you're asking the actual details, I think I have a video on spontaneous symmetry breaking, and I think I also have a video on the Higgs mechanism. Did you know friction causes heat? Ah, yes. What new, if any, physical inquiries or avenues for research are arising in the field in our time? I can tell you about mine, but I won't, because then that would tell you what I'm working on, which would give away my identity. That's not really a question that is sensible to answer. What kind of books do you like to read or shows watch? So I haven't been reading a whole lot of books. I really should. I should read more. And maybe I will now that I have more time. But I mostly read like academic work. At one point I was really into sci-fi, but I just haven't read in a while, like read for fun in a while. The shows I like to watch, they're like, I really like Star Trek. I do like sci-fi, I like fantasy. So do you try to remember a lot of proofs, derivations, or you just review them when needed? More the latter, but once you review them enough times, then you kind of remember them, just kind of on accident. Does light have momentum? It absolutely does. Is the emptiness of space a fabric particle, or is it the absence of such? We don't really know what the ontology of spacetime is. Thoughts on Jason Lyle's speed of light hypothesis? I mean, like, it's a hypothesis. Can he produce a test for it? Do you believe the laws of physics are intrinsic across time and space? I think that they're an accurate description across time and space. That seems plausible. It seems plausible that they don't change over time, whatever they are. Or over space. I know there's lag, I know. I'm gonna get an Ethernet cable today. Do you deal with flat earthers? Yeah, I haven't in a while because they don't really come onto my lives anymore, but I used to all the time, yeah. Did you read The Expanse? No. How do we keep track of a complex structure like a galaxy considering relativity of simultaneity and the fact that gravity travels at the speed of light? So the thing is that things in the galaxy are not, okay, so we can just pick a reference frame and then just do calculations there. So typically you'll do a calculation from like the center of mass of the galaxy, for example. Or you'll do a reference frame from some distant place. And like you just pick a reference frame and do your calculations. Why do we invoke the concept of infinity in physics when we also note conservation of energy mass? I don't know what that question means. We invoke the concept of infinity in physics when it pops up. Do you have a realistic or non-realistic approach on the nature of the universe, meaning theories describe reality or are only convenient tools to talk about the universe? I'm kind of halfway between them. I like to think that there is some way that you could describe reality correctly if you had access to the true ontology. I think that it seems very implausible if our theories make very, very good predictions, but don't at least capture something about what that reality is. But I'm skeptical that the theories that we have are capturing the full story, or even capturing part of the story. Like, I still view them as models, but it seems like those models are telling us something real about the universe. Is there a fundamental quantum of time? Not really. Like, if by quantum you mean like a particle, no. Not as far as we can tell. How much schooling did you have to do to get where you are? I had 4 years of undergrad, 2 years for a master's, 5 years for a PhD. How hard is physics in high school? I never took physics in high school. The laws are invariant. How do you interpret context-sensitive behaviors? Symmetry breaking or decoherence that seem to encode historical or local conditions. Well, those are developments of the fields, but they're not changes in the laws, right? Any true randomness in quantum mechanics Planck scale? It depends on your preferred interpretation. And thank you for the $2 Woolite Mammoth. So the idea is that if you take the many worlds interpretation seriously, then there's no randomness, no. But if you take the Copenhagen interpretation seriously, or several other interpretations seriously, then yes, there is. How is it like living in the Czech Republic? Are there still remnants of communism? I mean, there are. Like, you can definitely tell that some of the buildings were like built during the communist era. Like they have the kind of the what are they called? The commie blocks or whatever. But generally the people are very against communism. Or at least like, you know, Stalin-esque or Soviet-esque communism. Can we measure the strong nuclear force in newtons and what its value? Well, it depends on things like distance, so you can't measure it explicitly in newtons. But there, you can write down a formula for it, yeah, sure. Can I come up? I'm not taking a guess right now. What was your concentration in PhD thesis? So I did my PhD on conformal hypersurface geometry. How come we can't build a pyramid like they did in the ancient days? We can, like easily. Have you seen the Burj Khalifa? It's like way more impressive. Who built the pyramids? We actually know a guy who participated in building the pyramids. His name is Memer. And he wrote a journal about this. Like, we found his journal. And he was like a foreman on a construction crew for the pyramids. So yeah, it was the Egyptians who built the pyramids, obviously. Do you prefer breakfast burritos or breakfast sandwiches? Breakfast burritos. How to provoke existential thoughts around the orthodoxy of science. I don't know what. Oh, here too. How did the internet get fixed? I have no idea. I have no idea is it fixed now? Which university have you been? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. How do we know how to pronounce his name? We know how to pronounce Egyptian. Like, go talk to linguists about that. I'm doing e-bike deliveries and I'm doing a lot on sunny days. Do I pick up more photons driving toward the sun at say 60 kilometers per hour? I suppose. It's not Imhotep, no. Thought you were a communist. How was it like living in a place with you? It's like, I'm not a communist, no. I'm a socialist. But the kind of things that I want, that I push for, are not the kinds of things that they don't like. They love their free healthcare, their universal healthcare. Find it impossible for the Egyptians to have built pyramids that didn't even have wheels. You can build things without wheels. Did they fool the double slit experiment with a mirror, or is that fake? I don't know what you're talking about, so I'd have to look into it. What would you tell a young person who is interested in science but doesn't receive support and or is discouraged to follow such path? I'd say, do it. Just do it. Just Nike. Just do it. Like, it's definitely hard, but do it. It's amazing. Was Imhotep not the father of all science? I don't think so. Which interpretation do you fall into? I take the many worlds interpretation seriously, more seriously than Copenhagen. How's the jet lag? I don't have jet lag. What I do have is I have a really, really tough sleep schedule right now. John Fabiano, first time catching me live. I appreciate that. Well, welcome. If you don't know anything about physics, what's the best intro book to read? Depends on what you're interested in, but like A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking is really good. I know my stream is lagging. I'm very aware. I'm going to get an Ethernet cable today. Is the quantum field God? No, I don't think so. How do black holes die? Does it evaporate? That's the idea, yeah. They evaporate very, very slowly. Could time emerge from entanglement rather than flow independently? Possibly. People are taking that idea seriously. If the observable universe is just a causal patch, do you think the rest must obey the same laws, or could it be physically disconnected in principle? It would be very, very weird if they didn't have the same laws. Let's put it that way. Do you know Ethiopia? I mean, I've never been there, but I'm familiar with the country. Like, I know that the country exists. You're a huge fan, Jambar? Enormous, Jambar. I didn't know you were a huge fan. Can you explain virtual particles very simply? Yeah, they're not real. They're fake, made up. Fugazi. How does the Doppler effect work with sound if you go faster than the speed of sound? If you go faster than the speed of sound, then you can't hear the sound. How can I start studying relativity? Pick up a book on relativity. I think there's a good one by David Griffiths. Is it true that matter can't be destroyed? No, we can destroy matter. In fact, it happens in your, if you have bananas in your kitchen, it's happening like once every 45 minutes or something like that. What is your take on perturbative quantum mechanics? For me, it was super boring and not a lot of new info. Yeah, it is kind of boring, but you have to do it to actually do genuine computations. Jambar, do you know anything about holographic entropy cone measures? I do, actually. Jambar, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't do that. The lag is real. I know. I'm getting an Ethernet cable today. Oh, are the questions we're not seeing from another simultaneous stream on TikTok? Yes, that is exactly it. Yep. Do you view the area of time as emerging from entropy increase alone, or is there a deeper reason baked in the structure of field equations? I'm kind of agnostic on it, but entropy seems like at least a plausible explanation. Can you explain what's the purpose of particle accelerators? Well, yeah, so they have two purposes. The first is to accelerate particles. The second is to very, very quickly decelerate particles, to smash them into each other. And the reason we do this is because it gives really good insight as to how those particles work. Griffiths, I know, for quantum and electrodynamics. Isn't there a relativity book that Griffiths has? Otherwise, you can just pick up Space-Time and Geometry by Sean Carroll. That's a good book. Jambar, quit it. I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you. Get out of here. Get out of here, Jambar. Could the Tic Tac UFO behave in the manner that it did without leaving a measurable trace? It probably did. Or it didn't move that way. Is gauge theory just EM theory but deeper? Yeah, sort of, kind of. Do you have a girlfriend? I actually am married to a woman. So I have a wife. Ever dabble into anti-gravity research? No, I don't really take it seriously. Do you regret being a physicist when funding is so bad now? No, but I do regret not taking a tenure track job offer I had a year and a half ago. That's a regret. Jambar, quit doxing me, okay? Do you believe reality is fundamentally continuous or discrete? I'm kind of agnostic on it. How do black holes evaporate if the Hawking radiation emanates from outside the event horizon? It doesn't. You need the event horizon in order for black holes to evaporate. Why aren't gamma ray lasers feasible yet? Just because they're really, really hard. It's really, really hard to make mirrors for gamma rays. Do you believe string theory is dead? Not really. What was Carol's first name? Sean. S-E-A-N. All right, y'all. It's been an hour and a half, and I need a cup of coffee. So I'm going to end the live here. Probably go out, get an Ethernet cable, fix up my stream so it's not lagging as bad next time. And I'll see you tomorrow, late morning, early afternoon. Take care, everyone.